All right, folks, episode 3. Here we go. We got Quan Cosby, Nick Kreider, Alex Desopoulos, and I'm Joshua Fisher. This is the Horns Up podcast talking Texas, so get your horns up. Here we go. Horns Up, Talking Texas podcast, episode 3. We're ready to go. We're at you. It's the heart of August. We are just weeks away. We're counting down the minutes and the days to September 4th, where our boys in burnt orange hit the floor and hopefully pound some heads and make a statement like we did the top of the year last year. But before we even get into any football, because we do obviously do mostly football, the Olympics just wrapped, and we were talking in our group text today. The United States had 26 Texas alumni or current Texas athletes in the Olympics total. And had Texas been its own country like the United States, they would have 9 total medals, 5 gold. I think they would have been 26th in total medals for countries and 17th for golds, which
incredible.
I didn't look up. I admittedly didn't look up any other university, but I can't imagine anybody else is like matching that. I know the Florida has like all the swimmers and the fish. But for us, I mean, it's pretty remarkable, and it's kind of crazy that not everybody was representing the United States. We had Stacey Ann Williams win bronze in the 4x400 for Jamaica. Yep. One of the gold medalists, Julia Grosso, was for Canada. She's a soccer player. But KD wins his 3rd. Ryan Krauser goes back-to-back. Ariel Atkins, one of the youngest in the women's hoops. Chiaka Ogbogu wins gold in volleyball. She's one of the best volleyball players we've ever had. And one other didn't win a medal, but Melissa Gonzalez, I don't know if everyone saw, but David Blau is her husband, and he's like the second or third string quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And he had a whole watch party for her when she was doing the hurdles for the qualifiers. And that's the video where he's cheering and going crazy, and she's running for Columbia. She's from Texas, but she ran for Columbia, and she qualifies, and he goes nuts, and everyone goes nuts with him. It was one of the most heartwarming videos of the Olympics, but it took place in the Detroit Lions practice facility, which if you had asked me at the top of the ceremonies, if that's what that was almost going to bring me to tears from the Olympics, I would have been shocked. But what a great showing. And also who else do we have? We had Kat Osterman in softball win a silver, and this was her 3rd. I think she won her 3rd medal and like first medal in 2004 for softball, which is kind of nuts. Tiana Davis won on the 4x100 for a silver there. Crazy showing by Texas. And when you win, for those who don't know, I assume most people do if you're listening to this, if you win as a Texas alum, towers burnt orange, which to me is one of the coolest traditions in any university. It's a life goal of mine to have that, be the reasons. I don't know how it's going to happen. I think I'm a little I'm infinitely past my prime playing sports. That happens when I was 4.
Got an Oscar.
But exactly. Oh God, Chuck and Pry. There is a guy on our show, not named Nick or Alex or Josh, that has had the tower lit orange for him. So Quan,
the one on there, baby.
What's the feeling like there, man?
Man, it was funny you say that. That's actually my lock screen. It's a big deal to get the tower lit. And the one thing when I was doing the radio on the sideline, I'd leave, and when you win, they'd only like the top of it. That is equally cool to me. I mean, it's so freaking awesome. Lighting the tower, and how many folks we had in the freaking Olympics. That was big time, because I know we had a long jumper too. It's our very first one. Mm-hmm. And I think she got 5th. So, very first time, represented well. Her name starts with a T, Tara or something like that, but just insane. Ryan, dude, we talk about winning goals, one thing, but he obliterated his record in shot put. And we have Michelle Carter, who's a Longhorn, talking about it, literally in shot. You go back to the 4x1 and the different things that people was represented. You had Sonya Richards-Ross talking, and that was the cool piece for me. I'd hear somebody, I was like, I know that voice. Oh, that's Sonya. Oh, that's cool. And then I'm like, oh no, I know that voice. Oh, that's Michelle Carter. And so the amount of burnt orange in Tokyo has been freaking sweet. It's been awesome, very well represented. So I'm sure there's some schools out there. Honestly, from a track standpoint, that school east of us had a few people as well.
Yeah.
But not on our level as usual, and certainly happy about all of it. And getting that freaking tower lit is, I know why it's a bucket lister, because it's one of the coolest things, I think. By the way, hey, so we at one point, and this is pretty funny, we were the only school that kind of did that. Mm-hmm. Other people like stuff and all that. There's a school on the East Coast, when they win football games, they now light a tower that they built last year, baby blue or sky blue.
Mac Brown?
Coach Brown implemented that in North Carolina now. And I will say, it looks awesome.
Does it look sweet? I didn't even notice that. That's
so freaking sweet, dude. It's the bell or something they have on campus that when they win games or whatever now, they light the entire bell blue. Similar, it's not our tower, but it is its own version of it. And it looks sweet. And so
the best color in sports. It
dude,
really is.
Dude, it looks so good.
Blue swag.
I cannot argue that. But no, man, it's pretty cool. And I'm proud of all of our Longhorns taking care of business.
Yeah, we want to shout Joseph Schooling too, who competed. And he had won the first gold medal for Singapore last Olympics. We had Joseph on our other program. Great, actually really cool dude. He didn't qualify for the medal race, and people were giving him flack, which is just so nuts that they're like have him on a pedestal one day and then they're giving him flack. I mean, Quan, you've gone through that, I'm sure. We're like, okay, everyone's hailing Cosby, and next thing your game's not as good as last week, and everyone's bringing the thunder down on you. And it was like,
it's so funny to me. It's like, dude, you didn't place in the Olympics. I'm like, hold on. So he got invited to Tokyo, means one of the best athletes on the planet. But you're saying he's awful because he didn't make the top 3 or she didn't make. Come on now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Uncle Ricos out there, but you're not going to. You can't do it. How can you? I play professional ball, and I still am very hesitant to talk. I'll point out the obvious. Somebody drop a punt, drives me crazy. Somebody drop a pass, drives me crazy. But I'm not going to be like, oh, that person sucks. No, they're at the top of they probably have bigger contracts than me. So they're at the top of their game, and no one's perfect at it. So, man, it's fascinating what all that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just the oxymoron. I'm like, yeah, you could say that person's, garbage, but then you have to quickly turn around and say, yeah, if in 1,000 tries and 100-mile-per-hour fastball is blowing right past me, even if I even stay in the batter's box for the 1,000 tries, I may just be out of. I may see 20 from Aroldis Chapman and go home. Like, I've seen enough here. But it is kind of crazy that people just kind of give him flack. But obviously, what he did was amazing. And people always forget in swimming and gymnastics, like those are sports where it's kind of a young person's, like Phelps is the outlier. It's kind of a young person's game. Like there's people that are like 14 years, like Phelps was 14 when he jumped in the Olympics, I believe. Like there's one of the swimmers was like about to start her freshman year. Like it's a young person's game. So Joseph was 26. So shout out to him. Awesome dude. What he did last Olympics was amazing. Well, I guess we could try to transition this into, I know Quan, you wanted to talk about recruiting. Well, you all wanted to talk about recruiting, but you wanted to specifically get into the NIL before we get into any team stuff and what you saw at practice this past weekend. And it's crazy that there's so many rules, and Julia Grosso, who's representing the Canadian soccer team, but plays for UT soccer, she can't participate in the NIL because she's not American, and neither can our punter. And now I'm even more confused by what's going on, that we're not allowing. It's crazy. We're not allowing American kids to do this.
It's crazy. So that's one of the issues. And I think to a certain degree, the legislation passed. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, like a lot of things that from a legislative standpoint, it's passed, but I'll tell you what, I digress. Let's go back to Zuckerberg being on Capitol Hill and our senators not knowing how Facebook makes money. Literally asked him that question. That's what I think to a certain degree with this. There wasn't a lot of ex-athletes or people who care enough. I mean, we all I'm sure our senators and legislators like sports. That's why they got a little bit involved and all that, but they just don't know how it actually worked. And the true, as I say, under the umbrella, rubber on the road piece of it, it's crazy to exclude these amazing athletes coming from different countries, which, by the way, is a great thing. You're still giving them, they're getting a U.S. education, college education, all this good stuff. So it's just a mess. And now then you take it to UT, I got a text the other day and someone was like, why are we falling so far behind on this? You got Nick Saban talking about his backup quarterback making an insane amount of money. I am not necessarily for this, but you have a kid in South Lake Carroll skipping his senior year to go to Ohio State because of how much money he's making. First of all, he lived in South Lake, so he didn't need it. He's doing all right, but he still made that choice. And so we better figure it out because we're going to a league, in my opinion, and this is 100% I was recruited, so maybe it's a little bit more than opinion. The SEC's been doing NIL before NIL was around.
Oh, yeah.
So they're light years ahead of us on taking care of their players on that level. We chose an amazing university because we love the university. I got recruited in the Southeast, and they've been doing this way before it was legal, and so we better pick it up. And I think that's my biggest frustration in watching. We honestly, in my opinion, we're adding steps to it opposed to embracing it. And I promise you, Saban hates NIL, but in perfect Saban fashion, I can't control it now. I need to be the best at it. And I don't hear about these great deals that our players are getting. And that's not a really administrative UT problem. It factors in a little bit on some of the red tape. But to me, that's a donor issue. That's an alum issue. It's their likeness. UT is not forking out any money. They can't. That's still against the rules. But our alumni, we all want to win. We all want to take care of business. We are the University of Texas, one of the biggest endowments on the planet. We have a lot of great business people.
Deep enough pockets for sure.
That school down east, we lit a fire in the Aggies. They would deny. They would say we were doing it anyway. But that SEC talk that we've talked about in previous podcasts, we lit a fire and they are killing us in recruiting.
Today.
That's not a Sark problem. He's fresh. His staff, they work their butt off. I know all of that. But when we get to there, if I say there's a pillar of three things, school, city, NIL, I would say that's it. Now, when I say school, a lot of things fall up under it. Winning, coaches, facilities fall up under it.
The program itself.
NIL is in the top three of anything going on in recruiting, in my opinion. You better be talking about NIL. And I think that's where we're missing it. And I think that's why we've missed a fair share of pretty top recruits in the state lately.
Well, do you think is an issue in the sense that he's Sark, and there is the allure of Texas, but he's still got to get his feet wet.
Oh, yeah.
Implementing the new system. He's got to pick his quarterback. I mean, there's so much that's going into the season already. Yeah. So is that also a factor of what's setting us behind combined with the NIL? Has he really gotten his head start?
I think they've done a really good job from that standpoint. I think winning cures everything. I've talked to coaches about that forever. And they take care of business this year. The unknown for at least some of the Big 12 should help us, in my opinion. But I think winning cures everything. So he is going to have to still prove himself. And I'm 100% sure that he doesn't think he's just going to walk in here and just get to choose like he did at Alabama. We're not there. We don't have a championship in the last 10 years. We have 4 total as a school, if we're being really honest about where we are. So they're going to have to work, and winning's going to help. But at this stage, what can help him? And that's why I talk a lot about the NIL. What can help him that is perfectly legal right now and getting recruits? I mean, Ohio State's going to have 4 or 5 5-star quarterbacks in one room, and this one still leaves early to go join them. That's because of NIL. That's why he did it. I mean, why would you rush to go? If he's good enough, maybe he'll start. But why would you rush to go join 4 other 5-star quarterbacks trying to figure it out? Yeah, you did. He did it because of NIL. So that's kind of my 2 cents on why it's in the top 3 now. It wasn't before, but now it's in the top 3 big things that you're going to have to discuss, figure out. And the school out east, actually, Aggies even hired a full-time NIL person, getting ahead of it. Kudos to them. I thought that was very smart. And I don't know that we have that. So
we need that.
I'm super fired up about it. We have to do better and get better in that space, because I feel like right now at this point, I think it's losing us recruits.
Absolutely.
These kids have the option to hire their own agents, or are they making these deals on their own?
So really, that's the other inconsistency of it. It depends on the school. I know UT kind of do it with an email. You can send requests in, adding more steps. But again, maybe they could track it a little bit better there. But no, if you're a donor, you can reach out to the kids by themselves. So when I played baseball, I couldn't hire an agent. I can have an advisor. And so that's what some of them are utilizing as an advisor. They can't sign with them. They can't talk crazy stuff and contracts and the whole agent type stuff, but they can have an advisor, kind of a marketing side of it to do it. And even the only other thing I will say that, but with NIL, separate than NIL, I'm all for getting folks from everywhere. But my humble opinion is, we won the Natty with Texas kids.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want to tell anyone how to do their job, but if I'm going to get a 3-star from another state, I feel like we have plenty of Texas 3-stars that have been pretty dang good. Colt McCoy is a 3-star, winningest quarterback of all time at one point. And that dude from Boise State passed him. I'm going to put an asterisk on that because I'm biased. But again, my second go around, I was a 3-star. A lot of 3-stars who turned in. I mean, our lineman, my man Cosme, was a 3-star from this state who ended up being an All-American. So it's just we're in a really interesting space now that I'm paying a little, not much different, but a little more attention because of NIL to recruiting. And I just think we have a pretty strong class coming up in 2022, but we keep missing. And some of our folks, which is the most alarming, are decommitting. And I think that's a problem to me. And we're still great. Heck, we got a new South end zone. We have all this different stuff. So what is making these folks change their mind? And in my opinion, I think it's some of the NIL deficiencies that I feel like we have.
Yeah, we have 3.
Do you know? I was just gonna say, do you know in Aggie land that individual who got hired to basically act as that in that advisor capacity, are they hired by the university, or are they hired like outside of the university to work on the university's behalf?
Hired by athletics.
Okay.
Athletics.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's it right there, right? Like you need the person that, or multiple people who can bridge that gap, like you're saying, from the donors to the athletes, because this is not communication that's happened before. I mean, it feels like and there are people who are chomping at the bit who we, as like we were students at UT, those are the people we probably met, right? Like those are the people that know the kids, that know the athletes and know what they want. And it's just a matter of like, yeah, they're not the same people who are in those boardroom conversations of like where we want to spend our marketing and advertising budget. But those companies need to figure out that that's one of the best ways that they actually can market whatever their product or company, especially if it's Texas local kids, like what you're talking about.
Exactly.
It's a full-on pipeline.
Yeah, and that's the big picture of it too. We have Texas local kids. You take care of them on that level. That's recruiting and marketing in itself. And,
it speaks for itself, the whole thing.
You take care. And now one of our best running backs, B. John, he's an Arizona kid. But he was, if you're going to go get an Arizona kid, get a 5-star. That's my point. But the Texas folks, the trickle down effect from a marketing standpoint that I think it's a no brainer to our Longhorn brand. Our brand's great. That's not going to change. Actually, I'll take that back. We go to the SEC and get embarrassed. That could change. Our brand's taking a little bit of a hit. It's taking a little bit of a hit. And I just know those schools are light years ahead of us in handling this level stuff, the NIL stuff. And we better catch up.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't want to secure 5-star recruits to help us get Texas back, right? We want 5-star recruits that are coming from out of the Texas area to be coming because they want to be in that pipeline, like we're talking about with Quinn in that Ohio State pipeline. Like, which I feel like for us in years past, and part of that is just it's a testament to not winning enough, right? Like once we win enough, then we establish that they're not coming here to change our culture, but to be a part of it and already existing winning culture, which let's get to it.
There is one thing. Like, I mean, I saw like Derek King, who's a quarterback from Miami, who's signed an NIL deal with the Florida Panthers, which wild. It's a professional team. He is working with something where the top guys, such as himself on the team, some of the money gets distributed to other guys. My whole big worry for the NIL, honestly, and it's not even come to fruition yet, was what's going to happen when certain guys in the locker room are making a mill and certain guys in the locker room are making nothing. That, to me, I don't know. Like, it just changes. Or what's happening when an 18-year-old kid or a 19-year-old kid is getting paid X amount of dollars and they have no financial advisor in place. There's not a good enough system in place where that could kind of tear them apart. I mean, and this is weirdly enough, this is speaking from experience. Like, when I went to school, I had a stipend. It was like whatever, $1,200 a month or a semester they'd give me. And I didn't know, like, I had no financial bearings. Like, one semester I was like really took poor care of it. I was like, holy smokes. Like, it can like Shaq's talked about how he spent Shaq spent $1 million in a day once.
I was about to say a couple of Jordans or something, and that money goes real fast.
That light blue is a nice color, man. Like, I've seen that on StockX. I'm like, oh my God, $400 in the firm. I could figure that out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know that's me today. Like, it could go really quickly. So I will say, I hope, we get an advisor in place to help them get the deals, but I also hope we do get somebody in place to help them keep the money and help them, because that'll go a long way too down the line.
So 2 things on that. There is a 5 or 6 hour financial literacy component to the legislation.
Yes, there is that.
So that even how to implement that is still up in the air. I don't know that the schools are compliant yet to that. And that's going to be a work in progress. What I found out about this thing is it is a moving target, but that's not going to change. So there's some people I do know that's going to knock that out of the park and try to help. And that's a great point. It's kind of wild. From everybody, the disparities in money, that's just kind of how the locker room is. I mean, it's no different than
the NFL.
Linemen don't very often get in front of the camera. Let's be real.
Right.
That's why local radio, we would take linemen because we thought it was good. We gave them some camera or some voice time, interview time, but truly in the camera. And heck, we had Longhorn Network, and it didn't get linemen very much. So it's our own network, so I don't know that guys worry about that piece of it as much. If you're like King and you're cool enough to trickle some of that down, that's pretty cool. That's really awesome. Actually, I didn't know that he did that, but guys know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of life. I honestly think I want them to go through that in a more realistic way, because that is real life. Okay. I'm in my office today, and everybody in this office doesn't make the same thing. And for whatever it is.
It's true.
We need to teach you some real life things here. And quite frankly, especially if you're not winning, everybody's not going to get to the league. So this may be an opportunity to earn a little bit something, to do something on that level to help. So I get what you said, and that question has been answered. But I think truly in the locker room, some people are going to have, I think that can be fixed culturally. If you win enough, more opportunities come, right?
For sure.
And that stuff that'll fix itself. I know Alex said earlier about the winning. Maybe some of this is because we haven't won as much. My thought to that is maybe because we're not buttoned up on this level, it's factored into us not winning as much. I feel like the little things about the game, just culturally and really historically, feeds to continued win and success. Coach Brown, we saw it best. You have to be consistently good to be great. And maybe these little things that we have missed on being consistently good at is why we haven't been as great in the last few years, gone through several coaches and all that stuff.
What do you see at practices? I mean, you were at practice this past weekend. What are some of the differences you've seen? Were you at
practice today, man?
Your practice today?
I went today, actually. I was going to go weekend, but it's funny. They were in shells, so that I wanted to at least get a little bit of pads on. Those first couple of days, you're fresh. It's all good. Everybody's fine. But they it was cool because of my radio deal, I've seen so many different coaching staffs.
I was about to say,
That's what's good. It's so weird because I go now and I'm like, oh, yeah, don't know his name yet. Oh, I do know him. And it's like relearning coaching staffs like crazy, which is never a good thing. Hopefully these guys are here for a while. Not putting too much out there. It was good, man. Guys are fired up. Their attention to detail is very noticeably different. The conversation, it was cool. I forgot the kid. He was one of our grad transfers. I actually heard him say this. He's like, coach me up. And of course, the dialogue with the coach. And it was cool because he's like, hey, coach me up. I want to learn this. I want to get better. I did something wrong. Let's talk. I'm coachable. And we live in a different era of players now. They're very different. I was talking to Huff, and then he don't care about what we talk about this. And we were talking about a coach was yelling at him, and Huff's like, yeah, that's probably why I wasn't really big. Huff is so soft-spoken, super deep, but he's like, I'm that player not screw up enough. And he was talking about his experience with Akina. He said, if Akina had to yell at you, that means he's already coached you for once in a calm way. That means your leaders, your teammate, because we police every position very differently and really between ourselves. And then that means one of your teammates corrected you. And then it got to the point where you still made that mistake. Then Akina's going to cuss you out. And so it was just cool to kind of talk about that piece of it in a different era that these guys are. And I just hope culturally they get back to that perspective. And I heard, I forgot which kid on the radio locally talk about them now being way more player-led. I could see that out there. And it was really cool. And I love that piece of it. That's what we were. And so it's some noticeable differences. And last but not least, I say this every year, talking about recruiting, talking about players. Dude, the look test, I was like, these freaking kids, I got to go to different parts because they're so freaking big. They're massive. We passed the look test.
Good.
We have some monsters out there, man.
We always do.
Collins, all these dudes.
Collins
so
a beast.
We can get right between here, and I know Sark is all over that. I think we could have success and change some things on the field.
I'm curious to know if how much changes in coaching staff changes, because you were with Mac Brown your entire time. I was with Chuck Strong for a little bit. I don't know what it looks like from a sophomore or a junior's perspective to switch over to a brand new coaching staff, in terms of the practice schedule and, the workout regiments. There's a ton that changes, right?
Yeah. Oh man. And even because I've seen them all now, it's so funny because I went to different NFL teams and there wasn't a whole bunch of change.
Right.
Some may go pads more, some may hit more, but it was kind of structured the same. It's wild to me on a collegiate level how insanely different they all are. But it's little things like, I think I saw more special teams practice in 30 minutes than I did in 4 years. And I'm talking the attention to one of the coaches was yelling at a young guy about missing this block. And I heard the guy go, Coach, I got him the second time. And I love the coach's response. He said, there's not going to be a second time in the game, partner. You have to get this right now. That sense of urgency is so cool to hear him getting coached up on that level, even at the special teams, because we've been so rough outside of, Deshaun making some plays occasionally. We just haven't been very consistent. And of course, Cameron's great. He can kick the ball a country mile, but I just know at those little things we talked about are being paid attention to. And it's super early. So it's early in camp, the little practice I went to, but it's very different. And honestly, it's going to be different when you're the head coach and you call the plays. And so all of those little things like that was just structurally different. And it was cool to see. And I got fired up. I tell you that, just kind of watching and watching the demeanor. It felt way more. It was just a different era of focus. I know a couple of years ago in the last little regime, there's times I was out there and I was like, I'm hoping this is organized chaos. And there's a method to the madness, but no, it was very, very intentional, coaching like crazy, every position. And like I said, man, we got some dudes out there. We have some dudes. Competition is heavy to say the least about certain positions, and everybody's looking good.
I mean,
you got 4 smiles on all our faces right now.
I know. I mean, it's just like, well, there's special teams coaches that get head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand, like, these, like Harbaugh's gotten a job. Like, it's like, and there's so, like, just as the prime example, and he's obviously had an amazing career with the Ravens.
I'm about to say the Ravens are pretty freaking good, and he drafts special team guys, and he has a Super Bowl. He has appearances. He won like, it's freaking. And by the way, the NFL game statistically, I think like 77%, 76% of them are won by less than a touchdown or less.
Mm-hmm.
So those field goals, that field position, it's a pretty big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Every game's going to come to a touchdown or a field goal. It's why it needs to be that important. So,
I mean, the Chiefs,
they got one of the best to ever kick a football on their team. So,
yeah, it's the unbiased. I would actually say that unbiasedly, we could say that on it. I think that's like the one thing, like, oh, there's no doubt that he's Longhorn or not. He's just absolutely the GOAT of kicking. But I mean, from a special team standpoint, it's like even like Saban, like we talk about Saban a bunch, like Bama never makes mistakes. If you're making a mistake on special teams, that means you're making a mistake on 4th down. If you're making a mistake on 4th down, like I'll never forget one of the worst Texas fan moments I've ever had. Oklahoma State, I think it must have been when I was maybe 2015, 2016. We are punting to Oklahoma State, and it's like a 10-yard punt, and we give them excellent field position. They go and score, and they win the game when we're at home. And it's just like that little mistake, like any kind of penalties, like all that. It's just like disciplined football. And like in that pass, like you're hoping it's controlled chaos. It's like, look, we all love the cool, fun uncle, but like when the cool, fun uncle is like watching the kids for like 3 days, it's dope. When he's watching the kids for a week, it's like, all right, after a month of eating Oreos and like Lay's, it's like, what are we doing here? Like the kids we're inside playing video games. Only so much Mountain Dew we could have. I mean, it's just, that we need. And you need, like, nowadays in sports, is player oriented. The players have to have a voice that has to be on their shoulders more so now than ever. I mean, the NBA, I think, has really done the job there of like making it a player focused league, and the voice of the player is different than the voice the player was 10 years ago, which is infinitely different than the voice the player was 20 years ago. And giving these kids, if we're giving these kids money, we might as well give these kids a voice too, and and let them grow up real well.
Well, even I want to say something about now versus before.
Yeah.
And not to pounce on our previous coach, but the whole, I don't talk to kickers. Well, we know, because their inconsistency tells us that you can't have that perspective and expect perfection or even consistently good units, and you don't even talk to them. You're almost belittling them from the jump, saying that publicly. So that's not the case anymore. It's super. That's why our special teams coach is Banks is he got broke off because
he's one of the best in the nation.
The value of what that's going to do, and those little things just get you fired up about what this team can be.
I mean, anyone who's ever played on a team in a team sport capacity, whether it's high school or college or professional, like the coach is crucially important. They really are in defining the identity of the team. But at the end of the day, like I loved my high school basketball coach, but did he empower every single player on that team? No, he didn't. He empowered me, and I was the team captain. And so then it was beholden upon me to empower the other guys, because those are your guys that you're going through the trenches with. And it's the same thing. Like, I feel like I loved Charlie Strong's like identity that he tried to just kind of put onto our team. And he had a lot of pushback from the higher ups as well, which did not help. Right. And it was kind of like mixed messaging going on. And then, and then we get with Tom Herman, and I feel like there was kind of a lackadaisical nature, and he clearly didn't even, you're right. He didn't even want to communicate with some of the with some of the players. Insanity. And it's like, you have to be really intentional, but you also have to really establish who the leaders on the team are. And like that Miami kid, Josh, that you're talking about, I love that. I love that out of a guy who's giving to his other.
Down. That's so much for their culture and for that team.
And our guys don't have to do it, but guys do have to step up, where if the coach isn't going to hold them accountable, their teammates are, right? Like that's just so important. And I think it's something that we've really lacked, where it's like, it's college. Like, we can rely on our coaches to really set the entire table for us. And it's like, no, they can start it, right? They can put down, I'm going to Josh analogy here. You can put down the tablecloth, but the guys have to put down the plates. They got to put down the fork, the knife, and the cups, right? Like, they have to be the ones who want to do it. And it's cool to see that that's happening, at least from what you've witnessed in the early goings.
Yeah, no, man, it was sweet, and you can see the noticeable difference. And I think it's going to evolve as well, because they went through spring, got a taste of it. That's limited practices, and that's a COVID spring. So shoot, they had 4 or 5 days that they were in quarantine. So they're going to go through this one. They're taking care of business, and you can just, I guess, and some of these young guys over the years are now older too. So man, they're like, golly, man, some of these cats. Well, maybe if you're fifth, I guess, maybe a fifth-year guy have had 3 coaches now.
Yeah.
And there's some on there. And with the COVID extra years, some of them, I think our Brewer, our tight end, is 5th or 6th year, however long he's been here. But they have to be tired of that. And so I can see we need to get to work. We need to take care of business, kind of work ethic without giving it, like I said, talking about that piece of it's not trade secrets. It's just a different culture and way of going about their work that is very noticeably different.
Mm-hmm. And a guy like Cade as well, you're about to leave the program, so you want to make sure it's in the best hands possible.
Well,
and he is
you're an Austin kid. Leaving the program. Cade every bit, and going back to the NIL talk and money, quarterbacks are going to get more love. But Cade is every bit of the same love, Westlake, Austin, all that Longhorn kid of Sam Ellen. And Sam, we saw the pictures of him and as a baby and the burnt orange. Well, there's several guys on this team who feel the same way. Card. Lake Trap. We have some. We now, for one, are actually keeping a few of our local kids here, but we can do better in that department. But they care a lot about it.
I thought that was the case with Ewers. They said that this is his dream school to go to when he committed to us at first. There was pictures of him in burnt orange, and then he goes over to Ohio State. So, and
now it's starting to make a little more sense.
It does. Makes a lot more sense.
Think about that. When we started this thing talking about NIL and stuff like that, you're like, man, and really we hear the rumors about, Sark is coming now. There's not many better offensive minds out there than that man. Again, there's some that are good. Clearly, that school up north has a good one. Let's be real. Ohio State does have a good one. But what he did and what he showed them after Alabama, you're like, well, shoot. If I'm that quarterback, I'm thinking maybe I need to reconsider my dream school.
His last 2 quarterbacks were first-round draft picks. Last 2 quarterbacks were first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
Mac Jones, Tua.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so now it makes sense why he's like, all right, not only did he switch, he left a year early because of, I think, the conversation, them being very, upfront and vocal about opportunities you're going to get. And again, it's funny because I usually dislike things that are true, especially when it doesn't apply to us, because I'm clearly biased about the Longhorns. But the SEC, it means more piece of it. This stuff like this is where it doesn't mean more to those players on the field. Our guys want to win just as bad as anybody on any field. But where it means more is the other little things that correlates with it. The Aggies, it's funny, man. They hadn't won a ship since 39, but they sell out every freaking day. And by the way, the 39 one probably has an asterisk on it. They sell out every freaking weekend.
It's before World War II. We don't count it.
We haven't found the records, but that's where it does mean more when it comes to donors, fan base, alum, buying in. It really investing back into these student athletes. So we better match it. We better pick it up, so to speak, because we're losing these amazing Texas kids because to a certain degree, it's meant more across the country.
Right.
Yeah. I will say while we're talking about these boys, I know you were there today, Quan, recording on Monday, releasing on Tuesday. Let's all round table real quick. We spoke about Bijan. We spoke about the quarterbacks. We hit Whittington. Any other guys you're really excited for to break out with Sark, knowing what Sark can do and knowing the talent we have on this roster? Everyone looking at the roster. Is there a guy on the roster right now that maybe isn't, the Bijan, the Thompson /Carter, the Whittington that you guys are looking at start with you, Nick, to go to Quan, to go to Toss, and I'll close out, that you guys are really loving?
I mean, on defense, I'm definitely excited to see Collins play some more. I mean, just that bowl game that he had was insane. And I mean, I definitely did some research, and all these coaches were saying that he's the biggest freak they've seen since like JJ Watt. So, I mean, if we can unlock some talent there where he becomes like a superstar, you know, top 5 draft pick in the NFL at some point, like that's going to create some chaos.
Mm-hmm.
That interception was sick, by the way.
Amazing.
One-handed pick. It was nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I can't, having a defensive player go in the top 5. I'm like trying to rack my brain on it. I mean, we see other schools, we see Bama do it, but we've seen other schools do it multiple times as well. Like LSU's gotten a couple of guys in there in the top 5. You know, I want to say, I feel like Tennessee's maybe done it. Maybe Eric Berry, but they've had it. A lot of other schools have had, like since Huff was a 7th overall pick, right? Back in, it was 06. And I'm trying to rack my brain about it. We've had other
Arakpo was 13, I think.
Yeah, Arakpo was 13.
I think Arakpo got the closest. What's my man Malcolm Brown? What was late?
Yeah,
32. He was 32. Yeah, Aaron Ross was in there.
Ross.
Yeah, I mean we've had guys, Griffin. Obviously Griffin go in the first round defensively, but having like that, imagine what that again. Like we talk, going back to the recruiting thing, it just like speaks for itself. You're sending a kid in the top 5, or you're sending a kid in the top 5. You're sending a kid in the top 5. Yeah. Unless it's like Wyoming or North Dakota State, where it's like. These guys are like, it's like that. Oh, they were 0-star recruits, and next thing you know, they grew 8 inches, and now they have the rocket arm. And it's like, how do we miss this kid? we apparently see every year nowadays. Like where was anybody on Trey Lance or Josh Allen, Carson Wentz? Like, where are we doing on these guys? Right. But having a guy like Alfred Collins, it's a great one. Is like, on the defensive side, is if he's just on so many levels, if he's amazing. It just changes the program. It changes the defense. You have that X factor. Like even like, it's not like South Carolina was anything to like write home about, but they were the best they've ever been really with Jadeveon Clowney when he was there.
Exactly.
And he was like, he won play of the year when he literally sent that guy back to before World War II with that hit.
That was sick, dude. He would probably get kicked out of the game for that now, but
that was the most savage hit ever.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah. Every time one of my buddies, like I could punch it in from the 1 yard line, I just sent that video. It's like no chance.
Yeah. And the same thing with Ndamukong Suh at Nebraska. Like, he was number 1 overall, and just like that changed that program. 2 overall, right?
2. He's 2 overall. Yeah, he's 2. But he was like, again, like he was like a Heisman candidate.
Yeah.
Changed the program. Quan, what about you, man? Next factor.
Man, mine's Jared Wiley. What we're going to have, even though Casey's a little bit older, limited true game experience. We saw what we saw in the bowl game, but a couple of reasons. My bias, because I grew up in Central Texas, and Mr. Wiley's a 254 brother as well. But 2, again, the dude looks like Shockey out there.
He's huge.
Like, man, he's huge. And what's crazy to me is
7.
Even last year, he'd catch a ball for 40 yards and we wouldn't see another catch for 3 quarters. I don't understand that. In the middle, and he's a beast. So I'm going to roll with him, man, because he really could be that matchup on a linebacker along with those receivers. Clearly, I'm biased about them, but that combination of all of that could be pretty freaking lethal. So I think Wiley is who I want to see break out. I want him to be all Big 12, All-American, all the above. And I think he has the physique to do it. And he has that it factor. He has some dog in him. I like the way he go about it.
He's your prototypical NFL tight end. I mean, 6'7", like he's listed at 250. I mean, that's like your Darren Waller, your George Kittle, you're like Kelsey.
Or like a Kyle Rudolph. Like, I mean, Sark is the king of RPO in college football. And it's like, we have these other receivers who are speedsters and can burn you there. But once we get to the red zone, having that guy just, hit the corner.
The fact that we didn't throw it to him we had this weird rotation thing going on, but that's, I got PTSD from some of the things that I watched for the last few years. But how are we not tossing it to him? Or we're not running Bijan. If we're not, schematically turn it up, just throw it to the guy. We had him and Epps last year. I'm like, put them both out there.
Eagles too. It's like, dominate that.
Hopefully we're going to see a little bit more of that.
Mm-hmm. Toss.
Yeah. You mentioned Quan, you mentioned Bijan, obviously, like I think we're a little bit past the situations where it was like the Wisconsin days where they had those like stint of like 3 running backs in a row where they just ran them so hard into the ground. Like Bijan obviously is going to get his touches and he's going to get a heavy workload. But I think that it's going to be really important what Roschon and what Keelan Robinson bring to the table as our second and third backs. And Roschon has to be really productive when he gets in there. And he has to, I want it to be, what I'm envisioning is that like we've talked about these other programs like Alabama, Georgia, who I think at this point we've talked about them too much, but like when their backup comes in and he runs for 170 yards, right? Like I want to see that sort of productivity from Roschon. And I think Keelan has a really great opportunity to get limited touches, but he is explosive. And I'm really looking forward to him hitting gaps and just being, when your second and third string running backs can be just as much of a problem in a different way than your first string, like we're really going to be dialing on all cylinders.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up Roschon, and Roschon is one of my favorite players we've had in a minute, and simply because he wasn't brought in to be the running back, let alone the backup running back.
Super selfless.
I was reading an interview, like in an article today that he had, and he just got to tell people I'm a football player. Whatever they need me to do, I go do, and I make sure we get the win, kind of thing. And that's like what you need out of the backup running back. It is number 5 show, and we all know it. We'll say it today. We'll say it next show. We'll say it hopefully throughout the season. But Roschon has proven time and time again that when he's got the ball in his hands, he's going to do whatever he can to make the team win. And he's a great number 2 guy. He's a great guy to have as a backup. And we are going to need that guy to supplement Bijan because we can't run him into the ground in the first few games. And he is a sophomore. So he's automatically back as a junior. And you want to have the ball in his hands as much as possible. But look what happened to Fournette. Like they ran Fournette into the ground at LSU. Right. And you started feeling the effects way before he got to the NFL. Yeah, he was the 4th overall pick, but you started feeling those effects at spots when he's a sophomore and he's a junior. So protecting Bijan a little bit, understanding that, you want to win this year, but you want to win next year too, because you plan on being the program even better, right? If we are going to the SEC next year, you want to have that running back to play that smash mouth football that you may need at times in those defensive battles. And having Roschon is just going to be massive this year. I think it's a great one.
Oh, and what we used to do as well, Roschon playing that role is going to be huge, but Roschon, I think last year he was a part of the kickoff return team, and then he's going to be a part of the kickoff team. I think it's time to put starters or certainly second teamers in special teams where they make a massive impact. So I know he has that mindset, and even going along with that quote, he can just be so big. Put Roschon as, the guy, the quarterback of the punt team. What can you do from a fake standpoint? You're always a threat. Those little things matter. And then him go down there and knock somebody's head off on kickoff or whatever. So, I love him, and right there with you, man. One of my favorite Longhorns. He gets it on a Longhorn level. And I think we're going to see a little bit more. I think he's going to do his thing like he always has.
Yeah, every time he gets in the game is great. I'll throw out freshmen. Some cool freshmen coming in. Xavier Worthy, the speedy Xavier Worthy. Yeah. I look at our coach. I look at Ruggs, I look at Devonta, I look at Judy, I look at the rock, paper, scissors game they used to play to see who plays the position that catches the touchdown, speeding down the line, and I look at that guy. I mean, Moore is getting obviously is going to be our number 1, but there's no doubt in my mind that Xavier Worthy can come in there with the speed and really just do some damage in the RPO.
Well, and that's the thing. People have questions about the receiver room, and I'm like, man, we stay healthy. We got some dudes. Joshua Moore can make plays. He showed that time and time again. Jordan Whittington, we are all on the edge of our seat, ready to see him break out like he needs to. So, man, we can go down the list of guys who can get it done. Troy Amir, I mean, he's one that I would. If I go tight end, I was going to say big 2-1, which is still so funny as a receiver number. But if it wasn't him, The guy looks like a Under Armour mannequin. Like he looks the part. He's huge.
He's pretty yoked.
I mean, I think he took a picture on Instagram next to DeAndre Hopkins, and he was morphed on DeAndre. And I'm like, I knew you were big, but bro, you and he can go. He ran 100 at a 10-3 or something like that.
Jesus.
So we got some dudes over there.
Yeah. Well, a lot of exciting offensive players. we'll get into a bit more defense. Nick threw out some defense this week. We'll get into some more defense next week, and obviously start breaking down what we're seeing at practice a bit more as word comes out. Gentlemen, let's hope we get this NIL situation in better shape by the time we meet again next week. But always a pleasure. Quan, Nick, Alex, and myself, thank you for taking a listen with us, and get those horns up, baby. It's the Horns Up Podcast, talking Texas. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em.